Today, we're talking about the key takeaways from day one and day two of training camp for the Chicago Bulls. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about the key takeaways from day one and day two of training camp. And so let's start with the most recent news that we heard today, and really starting with the injury report around the Chicago Bulls. And so it looks like that Patrick Williams twisted his ankle on a jump stop playing 5-on-5 today. Billy Donovan said that this was not serious. Patrick Williams did come back out and ride the stationary bike. And so the good news is that Billy Donovan is saying that it's not serious. The bad news is that this is not a great start for Patrick Williams. I think that out of all the players coming into training camp that really needed to get off to a good start, it was Patrick Williams, because Patrick Williams, yes, he's shown us some flashes, but it has been very much up and down. And then he's been struggling with the injuries lately. And so I just think that for Patrick Williams, he just cannot afford to miss time during training camp, because I feel like the group at the wing position is just super competitive. And so let's see what happens with Patrick Williams if he's able to get back out there day 3 of training camp. And so we'll be talking about that on the next video. But next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into Coby White. And so going back to the start of before training camp, actually media day, and then they were talking to Coby White, and he said that he was dealing with the calf strain. And so just a little bit of an update here. It looks like that the Bulls are going to continue to take it slowly with Coby White, and that's understandable because a lot of these Achilles injuries start with calf strains. And so that is definitely the right move for the Chicago Bulls. It says that he did some light shooting, and then also, too, he was riding on the bike as well. But expect for the Bulls to take their time with Coby White, because the calf, I can tell you, is something that you definitely do not want to play with, because if you ramp up too fast, that thing can tighten up and go back to where it was, when you first got injured, or it could even be worse. And so, that is the latest update there with Coby White. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the players that spoke today to the press. And so starting with Tre Jones. And so, I think the biggest takeaway from what Tre Jones was talking about is just that he got back into things a month into the offseason. And so talking about, his recovery and everything from the foot. And then he just talked about, look, he just wants to do whatever the team needs. I think that has really been the theme, I think, just amongst all the players that I've heard so far. And then he talked about, just the group, just how competitive and just playing fast and just going out and looking to find his role and everything else. And one thing that Tre Jones says is that, he wanted to be back with Chicago and just really felt that, he had a feeling that he would be back. And so, that was really what Tre Jones had to say. With Kevin Huerter, he just really talked about just trusting the coaches out there, because he's asked about going out and just starting or just coming off the bench. And he was just like, look, I trust the coaching staff. And just like Tre Jones, he's saying that, look, he will do whatever the team needs. And then also, too, he talks about how this team will really need to rely, on the deep rotation, and just based off the style of play, how they're going to have to throw multiple bodies out there. He did talk about the fact that he did participate in Basketball Without Borders. And so that is what Kevin Huerter had to say and what I saw with his presser. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump back into some of the stuff that we heard from day 1 of training camp. And so with Billy Donovan, I think that Billy Donovan really, he's talking about establishing more of an identity on the defensive end. And I think that one of the biggest things that I get from his presser is just defensive transformation. And I love it because, we talk about just how well this team was able to come out and change their offense last year, which I do think that they're going to be a lot better here in year two, just because, you've had a year under your belt in that system. You understand, what you need to do as far as training for it and stuff like that. And so I think offensively, this team is going to be a lot better. They're going to not have the silly turnovers like they did, which is going to help them there. And just really, Billy Donovan's talking about, like, you just have to get to the point where you're taking these charges, deflections, and the physicality. Like, he feels like that is going to be really what this team needs in order to kind of change this identity defensively. And he also talked about Isaac Okoro again. And so he continues to keep coming up. And so, with Isaac Okoro, he continues to keep saying this, that not everybody is going to be him, but, they just have to really kind of lock in defensively, as a team out there, and just play some better defense. And so talking about Isaac Okoro and just the physicality. And speaking of Isaac Okoro, one of the clips that I saw there from day one of training camp was him taking a charge. And so, that type of energy is really contagious, I think, for the team. And that's something that Isaac Okoro does talk about in his presser, about just going out there, playing hard and things like that, because he's like, when you're doing that, the team or just other players, they don't want to be the ones that are not out there playing hard. And so it just seems like that Isaac Okoro continues to keep coming up. And it looks like that the team is going to be much different on the defensive end. And so I know that they have not played a game just yet, but man, it sounds like that they are going to be much, much better there. And then Billy Donovan also talks about playing a deeper rotation. And he was talking about, just really the challenges of that, and talking about like how you don't want to necessarily, break up the timing and the rhythm, but he is all about possibly going with a deeper rotation. He does talk about, like, look, when you look at playoff teams and stuff like that, it used to be where you shorten up the rotation, but now with how hard and how fast the game is, you have to go out there and you have to play a deeper rotation of players. And so let's see what happens, and the adjustments that Billy Donovan is going to have to make. And he also talks about, Josh Giddey, and just really how he got better as well on the defensive side of the ball, and just really talking about just being better as far as like when you're coming and you're playing at the point of attack on these screens and stuff like that, and just getting better in open space. And that was something that he got better and better at. But the bottom line is, he was like, as a team, this team is going to have to lock in defensively. And so, again, just paraphrasing that. And so that was Billy Donovan in day one. And then also, too, we heard from Noa Essengue. And so, with Noa Essengue, the one thing that he talked about is energy. And so he talked about just the group energy and just how it was good to be out there competing and together. And then he also talked about, like, really his goal is to just bring that type of energy on both ends of the floor. And so that's the one thing that he's looking to do. And so I thought it was pretty short for the most part, but I thought that was like the biggest thing that he was talking about, is just really bringing the energy. He didn't talk about like what the plan is going to be for him his rookie season, but let's see what happens as time goes along, as we start to see these clips and things like that. But that is just recapping basically what has gone on here in day one and day number two for the Chicago Bulls. And also, too, one thing to note is that October the 7th is going to be the first preseason game. So that's going to be Tuesday against the Cavs. And so you can catch all the action there on Chicago Sports Network. They're going to have all 5 preseason games, along with all 80 games on the of the season, or all 82 games too as well. So anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking and what the key takeaways are for you over the first couple days of training camp. We'll be talking day number 3 of training camp here on this next video. And so, look, as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.